Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to take you into chapter 10 and talk to you about the squat assessment. Now, first off, just keep in mind, chapter 10 is very long, and I just have lots of questions that I got asked about. Number one, how much of chapter 10 do I need to know? Well, chapter 10 is a very important chapter, and I know there is a lot to it. So I start here. Muscular training assessments. These are very important, not only from sort of real world perspective, but from a test taking perspective as well. So ACE wants you to know a good amount about the assessments related to. Now, remember, we're talking about the IFT model. So there are functional assessments, right? The functional uh, phase or levels for the IFT model. The movement assessments, right? Because we have functional assessments, the functional movement, and then, of course, the load speed assessments. This is the muscular training side of the house versus the cardiorespiratory, right? So when you get to chapter 10, just be aware that, yeah, you're going to have a lot, right? It's a big chapter, but that's okay. But one of the questions I get asked a lot, and that's why I'm doing this particular video, is the squat assessments. Now, remember, there's two assessments that you're going to be doing with the squat. And basically, if you wanted to, two assessments as well for upper body. But the squat assessment, there's two of them. And that's why I wanted to go over this with you, because when you look at the load speed assessment, there's number one. And by the way, I'm just literally at the beginning of chapter 10. You can look um, right here. This would be right before page 390, 389. Load speed assessments. That is the third column over here. Muscular endurance assessments, muscular strength assessments. So keep in mind, there's not one squat assessment. There's two. Okay. And I want to take you into this would be page 442. This is where the load speed assessments occur. So load and speed, right, is one part of the IFT model's three-stage or three tiers of of integrated training that you're going to be doing with your clients. Not everybody gets to the load speed phase or level in the IFT model, but the load speed, once you get somebody there, you want to do assessments before you hit them with the protocol that you're going to throw at them with this. Okay. So in the load speed arena, you have assessments that are related to muscle endurance and or muscle strength. And so when you're doing squats, you have to remember that the assessment for muscular endurance for squats involves no weight. And then on the other, as you move forward through the chapter, you're going to see the strength assessment, which of course for the squat is going to involve the 1RM or one repetition assessment. Now, from a purely testing academic perspective, you got to know how to do these, which is why I'm going to run through them, run through at least the endurance one with you real quick. In the real world, it's only athletes that I would ever do this with. Not even be honest with you, fit clients, average fit clients. Only athletes, and very few athletes would I be doing a one rep max. Okay, this is just an old paradigm way of thinking when it comes to resistance training. One rep, one RMs are generally only useful for a powerlifter who needs to do a one RM in competition. Okay, we have better ways, safer ways to figure out working loads for athletes when it comes to how they're going to train. However, you got to know it from a test taking perspective. So let's go ahead to page 442, load speed assessments. And basically, what they tell you is that the load speed training phase emphasizes muscular endurance and strength and or improved skill performance in activities that rely on power, speed, agility, and quickness. Thus, load speed assessments are designed to help the trainer observe a client's performance in these areas. So I focus here and just for this video on the muscular endurance assessments. Now, page 442 gives you the push-up assessment. Just swing on over to page 445. And you'll see the body weight squat assessment. It's always a good idea when you're talking about squat assessments, make sure your client understands it's a body weight assessments. That's the endurance. Funny enough, you'll have folks that literally can't even do more than 15 seconds, 20 seconds, right? Is that truly endurance? Well, the reality is that you have no other choice. It's a body weight squat, and some folks literally can't do more than about 6, 7, 8 full body weight squats, but you do the best you can. And ACE actually has the criteria set for you on page 446 with table 1022 with the norms for body weight squats. But the point is that your body weight squat assessment, that's what you would say to your client. We're going to do a body weight squat assessment. They go, okay, hands out. I generally have people put their hands out in front, and you can see that in figure 1054. Perfect example of proper technique or performance. The general understanding is that all you have to do is have a person go down far enough to where the thighs are sort of parallel to the ground. In the body weight squat assessment, we're not always as concerned about the perfect bottoming out position where we have the pelvic tilt, that posterior pelvic tilt, which is problematic. With body weight squats, the chance of injuring the lower back because of posterior tilting of the pelvis and the incremental loss of the lordotic curve of the lumbar spine. As long as it's done smooth and slow and controlled, and they pause momentarily at that bottom position. As you can see, for instance, in figure 1054, that position that this individual has achieved, boom, stop, and then go back up. And it can be done smooth and controlled with no noticeable pause, but that bottom position, even with just a body weight squat, should be controlled enough to where they basically come into it and just, I mean, to say pause would be probably overstating it, but just enough to where they're not bouncing up and down, up and out of it. You definitely don't want them to bounce at that bottom position, and that's one of the key takeaways from doing the assessment with them. So this assessment evaluates muscle endurance. I'm just going right from the top of the lower extremity when performing repetitions of a squat to stand movement. And by the way, it's suitable only for individuals who demonstrate proper form when doing the squat. Remember, what ACE will tell you is that you don't just do assessments just because you want to do an assessment. Assessments, and they emphasize this, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with emphasizing it, that you make a kind of decisions with your client. Now, you could go overboard with that. You're not asking your client for permission, so to speak, but you two can discuss basically what it is that's necessary when it comes to achieving their goals, which assessments you should do. I think that this is a perfectly good assessment, but if your client goes, no, I don't want to do it, it hurts my knee, whatever the reason is, then don't do it, right? That's literally the way you would handle this with a client. If they are persistent about, don't get off on the wrong foot with a client and go, no, you're doing this assessment. I don't see why they wouldn't want to do it. But if there are some issues or problems, then make sure that's what ACE is going to tell you. Be careful with your assessments. Not every assessment is necessary. And by the way, in general, by the time you've gotten to this point in their model, in the IFT model, you're probably dealing with a more fit individual, I hope, or even an athlete. And so you just got to keep that in mind when making the decision how to do this. Just make sure you're not bouncing in the bottom and you don't have to lock your knees at the top. While this assessment mimics a primary movement that most individuals perform daily, it may not be suitable for clients who are deconditioned or who are frail with lower extremity weakness or balance issues, right? Orthopedic issues, especially in the knees. I'm not sure why they are in the load speed phase at that point. Anyway, they should have stayed in the movement, maybe even the functional phase of the IFT model itself. You're basically, as they say, evaluating muscle endurance of the lower body, right? So they give you a pre-assessment procedure, just like they do with all of these. Explain it to the individual, show them proper technique. It's always a good idea to do that. Do a warm up for sure. Just don't do squats as a warm up because they're going to be fatigued. Don't be doing 20, 30 squats as a warm up and then say, come on, let's do squats. Well, that doesn't make any sense because now they're fatigued. So a warm up might be something as simple as, I don't know, if you've got a leg extension machine or maybe a couple of step ups, right? Maybe stretching out the quads and the hamstrings and glutes a little bit. To enhance balance stability, extend your arms to the front or the sides. Generally, to the front's going to be the best way to do this. Put your feet shoulder a little wider than shoulder width. Those issues related to proper performance technique are not as critical as when you have a load on your back and you're doing the strength assessment with squats. And you're just having them complete as many controlled proper repetitions as possible. Termination occurs when they literally can't control the movement, right? Or they just get tired and they stand up and they stop. Then it's done. You stop at that point. Don't let them take a rest and then do more, because that would take away the veracity of the test or the assessment. And you just have them do it. Count the number of reps. Boom, go right to the table 1022, and you are going to see some numbers that you can now use to evaluate your client with. And basically these are norms that you could use to kind of write that down. Now you could do an assessment in 30 days. You could do another assessment in 2 months, whatever the case is. Generally 30 days is good to show your client, look what you did last month and look what you did this month. By the way, that's one of the reasons you do assessments, is you want to be able to show some progress. And if you've been training correctly and they're eating well, yada, yada, then technically my client who was only able to do 10, right? My 27-year-old male who can only do 22, which is poor. Now that individual can do 30, which is below average. But the point is that they're doing better than the previous time. So, I'm not sure how much of this you want to explain to your client as far as, hey, by the way, great job. You're in the very poor category. I'm not sure I'd want to be saying that, but it gives me something to look at and that I would write down and put into their file, however you're going to do this. So that is the endurance test. I'll do a video just to kind of review the strength assessment as well, which requires a little bit more understanding. And you need to be really, really careful when you're doing 1RMs with anybody, athletes included. And so if this was helpful, just let us know by writing understand in the comment box below. Let us know how we can assist you in any other way. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Thanks.